Hey everybody, today Rahdo talks through updates to Tiny Epic Defenders because Ted here is on Kickstarter once again. You can hit the I in the top right corner screen or follow the show notes to learn specifics, but I'm going to spend a few minutes today walking you through what is new in the fancy upgraded deluxe Tiny Epic Defenders, because wow, there's a lot of really cool new things. I'm already a fan of Ted, but I'm really loving how Ted has now evolved with the new Tiny Epic Defenders. And if you're like me and you have and love the original Ted, you might be thinking, well, hey, what's gives? Don't worry, Gameland Games has got you covered. Go to the Kickstarter page. There's stuff in place so that if you are an owner of the original, you can get all the new stuff at a discounted price, I believe. You can go check out the Kickstarter page for more information. But today, I'm going to put the original away and tell you what's new. Oh my gosh, so much cool stuff. Where to start? Here I've got a standard game set up. Well, for one, let's talk about the meeples. We're not just using regular meeples anymore. We're using the awesome, very cool item meeples that were introduced in Tiny Epic Quest, which at first glance looks like regular meeples, but here's the deal. As you play through the game and your characters start earning artifacts, like I get the Celestial Idol, hey, I don't just keep the card next to me as a reminder of that. I actually upgrade my character by putting a Celestial Idol in his hand, in his hot little hand. And then later on, if I upgrade and I'll get the Staff of Control, no problem. I'll go on ahead and upgrade and give myself a staff as well. I could even give myself a cape and plug into little backspaces and whatnot. Now, this doesn't really change anything about gameplay, but it is so much more fun and charming to see your character physically upgrade. Even if he's a standard little meeple, getting all these cool things as he's running all over the kingdom trying to hold off these tiny epic threats. So, right off the bat, that's kind of cool, but you might be noticing, if you're a fan of the original, that the art and graphic design has been radically overhauled as well. There's probably no better place to see that than in the heroes. Like here, I'm playing as a druid, and Jen is, the druid centaur. Jen's the warrior lizard folk. These were characters from the original game, but let's contrast and compare the old druid centaur from the original edition with the new one. As you can see, I mean, kind of night and day different. And not only do they look different, but a lot of the heroes have gotten tweaks or sometimes complete makeovers to their abilities as well. Like in the case of the druid, they've actually been nerfed a little bit because they were a bit more powerful than everybody else. In the original game, they had the martyr ability and also Nature's Call, which was an insanely powerful thing they could do, but Nature's Call has been removed so that they're more in keeping with everybody else. So that's one example of a tweak, but if we compare the old lizard folk to the new lizard folk, they've changed radically. Their old power of sprinting, just being able to move around the world a lot faster, has been completely changed into a new power of courage, which is one that means it really rewards a lot more clever planning, because you want to be in the right place at the right time to take advantage of your courage, as opposed. So you have to be more proactive to use lizard folk now, whereas before you could be more reactive. So that's just a couple examples, and all the characters, they've been completely made over, and some of them have gotten some not insignificant tweaks. But it's not just the heroes. The world themselves, all of the regions of the game have gotten, well, one, again, completely redesigned art, but also significantly changed. The heroes have been tweaked, in some cases changed big time. All of the regions are radically different. And there's no better example of that than to compare the old desert with the new desert. Again, first of all, they both look nice, but clearly I'm going to say this one looks a little bit nicer than this one. But if there's anything you would want to say philosophically about the changes that were made to the world, they have become much more interesting and interactive. Something like the desert in the original game was more of a problem than an opportunity. Either there was a heat wave, which basically made you lose health if you're stuck over here defending the desert, or there was a sandstorm, which just made it harder to get out of the desert once you were in. Now, those are both fine. Those are cool, interesting problems to solve and plan around. But now, the desert, instead of creating problems, gives you opportunities. If you're in the desert, if you want to, you can spend a heart to chase after a mirage, which is a huge deal because it lets you look through the top 3 cards of the deck and rearrange them. And if you know Tiny Epic Defenders, you know getting control over this deck is the most powerful thing you can do in the game. So if you're willing to sacrifice life to chase after a Mirage, you can really stack the deck in your favor. That's a big deal. Or instead, maybe the desert will give you the opportunity to bury some of your problems. Bury stuff out in the desert. Because so much of the game is about strategically paying attention to what's in this deck and taking educated guesses about what's coming next. I know I've been through most of our cards. I know there's one more hero card in there, but there's 3 more bad guy cards in there. Those bad guys are going to cause us to take damage to the capital city. What are we going to do? We don't have time to get over there. Well, if we're in the desert, we can again hurt ourselves to bury the top 2 cards from the deck so that they just, for this round, go away and get skipped. So that's, again, an incredibly powerful opportunity instead of a problem. Now, all of the regions have gotten significant changes. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll just go on ahead and show them to the camera, and you can pause if you want to see what they all do. But suffice to say, they're very, very cool. And again, they're all about giving the player more options, more powers, more tricks up their sleeve that they can use. Now, of course, some of them are still the same as they used to be because, you know, they were really cool in the original game. But, I mean, I gotta say, defending this Tiny Epic world is a lot cooler than the original one. Again, nothing wrong with the original one. I love the original, absolutely adore it to death. But I mean, this whole game could practically be called Tiny Epic Defenders 2 because there are so many significant changes. So anyway, the world has changed. The heroes have changed. Oh, also I should say, the capital city has changed too in one significant way. It has 2 more hit points to begin than it used to. So it will stand strong longer before you lose. That's a big deal because not only have there been artistic changes, not only have there been changes to the functions, but the bad guys have changed in very significant ways as well. For starters, let's just talk about some subtle things. First of all, you may notice that unlike the original Tiny Epic Defenders, where every region starts with 1 damage already done to it, so right from the get-go, you're fighting fires and running around and trying to, what it used to be called succor, and now it's called subsume or something like that. Anyway, trying to heal all the regions. Now, all the regions start out fine because as part of setup, you're supposed to stack the deck for the first time you go through it so that all 3 bad guys are on the top. So, because again, the crux of winning this game is learning the contents of this deck so that you can make educated guesses and push your luck. So, the first thing that happens over the course of the game is we reveal the first and the second and the third enemy. So these ones push, so we know right off the bat in this particular game, before we get to do anything, that the forest and the desert are the 2 areas in the most danger because we're going to keep going through this deck over and over again. The mountains are in a little bit of danger, and the coast is in a little bit of danger. The ruins and the plains are totally safe, so we don't have to hang out over here. Anyway, and then of course we get to our own cards, which allow us to do actions or split actions between the players. This all works exactly the same. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. In the original game, when you got these All Defender cards, you got this extra benefit of becoming more powerful if regions are destroyed. Now that has been applied to the basic cards as well. At the beginning of the game, you're getting 3, but once a region gets destroyed, we're getting 4 all the time. So the game has been made a little bit easier because of this. So the core function at the beginning of the game has changed and something else. But after you go through and a new card gets added and you shuffle it all together, maybe it's a dire enemy, maybe it's not, and then you keep on fighting. Now you have imperfect information about the areas you have to defend and try to stay 1 step ahead of that deck. So you can imagine why being able to bury stuff or do a Mirage is really, really useful. But there's another thing. Say we go through the deck a few more times and we're fighting and fighting, but no matter how hard we try, we cannot save the forest. It eventually goes down. Let's say it's almost dead and we're starting over, and boom, this enemy comes up. It's the first enemy that comes up at the beginning of a new round, and you may have noticed first, second. It used to matter. It didn't matter. An enemy comes out, both of those regions get hit. But now the forest gets hit first and the coast gets hit second. And there's a particular reason for that. Hey, the forest just got hit, so it's been destroyed. Now, in the original game, you just kept excess enemy cards in what was called the destruction deck or something like that off to the side to indicate that the region has been destroyed. Now you don't do that. Now, the card that destroyed a region becomes the representation of that destruction. So every time a region goes down, a bad guy comes out of this deck. And that is a big, big deal. That really changes the feel. Again, overall, makes the game a little bit easier because, well, one, as areas start to fall, we get more powerful. And as areas start to fall, enemies get taken out of the deck. So again, we're safer. I know there were a lot of complaints that the original Tiny Epic Adventures was too hard. Jen and I, we loved it. We loved the difficulty level. But by default, the game is just a little bit easier now because of this change to the way it works. And the interesting thing is, hey, this card, the forest went down, so this particular round, this was first, this was second, the second thing that happened, the coast didn't get hit this particular round. So that's just another way the game, it takes it a little bit easier on you. So that's very, very cool. As a way to change things up. And because it makes this deck more dynamic and it makes the game easier. Now, the rules say that if you don't want the game to be easier, you can still pump up the difficulty by just throwing more dire enemies into the draw deck than you would normally have. No, either you put more in here or you put more in the... No, yeah, you put more in here so that you'll have more dire enemies you have to add. So you can still increase the difficulty back to where it used to be if you are a diehard Ted fan like me and Jed and want the game to really treat you rough. But anyway, so that is a significant change. That once, but there's another element to it too. Remember how I said the capital city starts with extra hit points? When a region goes down like this and a card gets taken out and we've lost that ability and all that, the city immediately takes a hit. It doesn't wait until the next time you go through the deck. The city gets hit immediately as soon as that happens. But you know what? We just might have taken the only card out of the deck that hits you from the forest. So maybe we won't get hit from the forest anymore. So again, still, the game is a little bit net easier because maybe this is the only hit we take from that direction of the forest. Now, the dire enemies themselves haven't changed at all other than the fact that, again, they've gotten really gorgeous new artwork. But from what I've seen, every single dire enemy functions exactly the same as they used to. But there is one more change I haven't talked... No, two more changes I haven't talked about. One is the artifacts. Now, they still function the same way. You have to be in the right place at the right time when a dire enemy hits that area, and if you push the dire enemy back, you get a reward of an artifact. And once you get the rewards, hey, not only do you keep the cards, but you get a little reminder on your character about those artifacts. Now, the interesting thing is, the artifacts, like the heroes, have gotten some not instant... Some of them have been tweaked, but a lot of them have been changed radically. I mean, their names change, everything about them changes. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can just go on ahead and pause if you want to see what all the standard artifacts are. And of course, there are stretch goals for other stuff as well. So you can contrast and compare with how they function from the original game to the new game. But that's significant. But there's one more change. I would call it an upgrade. The dire foes themselves. Hey, after the deck finally empties out, we've gone through so many rounds, been Tiny Epic Defenders, eventually prepare yourselves for the epic foe. Boom. Hey, look, it's the Colossus. Now, this was a character who was in the original game. Once again, let's contrast before, after. Cool monster either way, but again, I'm still liking the look of this one more than this. But all of the dire enemies have radically changed their special effects, and to make up for the fact that the main deck has gotten a little bit easier on you, the dire enemies, for the most part, have gotten much more challenging. So they are tougher to take down once they are revealed. I mean, the regular dire enemies, they just have 10 hit points and they've got one special power, like this one, Clash. When damaged, the attacking hero takes one. That's fine, that's scary. Oh, I have to fight this guy, I get hurt every time I hit him. That's a problem, that's a tricky puzzle to solve. But that's still kind of a passive thing. Now, the Colossus is much more active. You'll notice there's a little space right here. If you're fighting the Colossus, over here in the desert where he's supposed to appear, when the defender's card is drawn, when it becomes your turn, that defender is immediately, it goes from the into the mouth. You're in the belly of the beast, and you have to fight your way out. From now on, now that you're inside of it, all you can do is fight, but you spend health instead of actions to fight your way out of this thing. And also, you'll notice there are these little fire spots. As the thing gets weaker at certain spots, it gets to do a special bonus action. In this case, this is when somebody was in here fighting from inside, getting digested while fighting. But as the thing gets weaker, eventually somebody will get spat back out, and then somebody else might get sucked in. This is so much more cooler and dramatic than this, which was just, whenever you hit him, take an extra point of damage. The dire foes are amazing now. I love them so much more. What's another good example? Let's see. I think my favorite in the whole game is the new giant. Now, the original giant, to remind us, he stomped, which is, at the start of every round, he'll do a stomp, which means everybody has to, get knocked on their side, and they have to spend an action to get back up. So it's just more time-consuming to fight him. That's fine. That's cool. That's kind of thematic. He stomps. We got to get back up after we're knocked down. Cool. But how much cooler is a Shadow of Colossus-style giant, where when you're here, in the area with him, because where is he? He's over here in the plains. Again, very Shadow of Colossus-y. You spend an action to climb on his back. All 4 heroes can be riding around on his back and attacking him from up there. And then again, at these moments, he will shake you off and you'll get knocked down onto the ground. So much cooler, so much more exciting and dramatic. And all the characters. Oh, the dragon is awesome. The dragon now flies around. He moves from place to place. So you have to chase the dragon because he's a flying dragon. And you got the new Kraken and the new Demon Lord and the new ancient, the big tree monster, etc., etc. So the dire enemies are so much more fun to fight now. I absolutely love it. Let's see, I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Like I said, there's lots of little tweaks here and there, but for the most part, that should give you a pretty good idea of what's new in Tiny Epic Defenders, the new edition on Kickstarter right now. Again, hit that eye. And again, if you have the original and you're wondering, well, what can I do to get the new one? Go check out the Kickstarter page. Gamelin Games has you covered. And that's it, folks. But not quite, because in addition to this new, totally revamped Tiny Epic Defenders, again, I tend to think of it as Tiny Epic Defenders 2. To me, it's a sequel. But it's just now, this is now Tiny Epic Defenders. There on the Kickstarter page, there is also Tiny Epic Defenders: The Dark War, a new expansion that adds all kinds of new cool functionality that you can back. Now, the new one is not compatible with the original game because of different card backs, and some of the functionality of the game has changed, as I was just talking about. But again, on the Kickstarter page, you can get the new, if you're owner of the original, you can get the new one at a discount, and the new expansion is available as well. Now, if you want to know about this, again, hit that eye in the top right corner of the screen, and you can go to another video where I'll talk about how the game has changed. The new heroes, the new enemies, the new features, generals, wagon trains, ships, all kinds of very cool stuff. So go on and hit that eye in the top right corner of the screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.